Hi, I'm Steve Packard, and on this very impromptu video, I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday, the gunning down of the CEO, Brian Thompson, in Midtown Manhattan. And this is obviously something that's very in my wheelhouse because I'm an expert in corporate security, corporate culture, risk management. Cybersecurity is really part and parcel of that. So what happened was obviously shocking to everyone who saw it. It was a man who was just on his way to a conference, and somebody came up and shot him. Execution style, obviously targeted and obviously motivated to take him out with quite a bit of pre-organization beforehand. So one of the things that people have asked a lot about that's come out is that people are shocked that he was there without a security detail. And I just want to make it clear, this isn't unusual at all for an executive like him. He may be the CEO of a powerful Fortune 500. In fact, he's not. He's the CEO of one of the sub companies of the United Healthcare Group, which has its own CEO. So he's a little bit lower profile, but the CEOs and executives who work for Fortune 500s, unless there's somebody like Elon Musk or Tim Cook, they generally are not known to people. They're not well recognized. They're not people the average person on the street would be expected to see. And there's generally kind of a sense of why would anybody hurt this nondescript executive? He's been painted in a lot of ways as very sort of wealthy and exclusive. But as I said, he's not actually the CEO of the entire company, number one. Number two, they talk about him living in a $1.5 million mansion. And I don't know if you've looked at home prices, but $1.5 million will not buy you a mansion. He was paid $10 million a year. He was not a billionaire. He was not a movie star or anything like that. And so it's not unusual for somebody like that to just travel on their own. In many ways, that is sort of its own risk reduction, is just keeping a low profile. Having an entourage of bodyguards around you would be expensive and heavy, and it would just draw more attention to you. This was a rather low-key meeting for high-end investors. It was public, as investor meetings are, but it wasn't all that publicized. So somebody basically researched it. They realized that he would be at the meeting, and they stalked him, and they followed him there. The thing is, it's very hard to stop somebody who's determined enough to kill you. You could look at somebody like Shinzo Abe. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure that it was unreasonable for him to be walking alone like that. He was only walking a short distance, and this is Midtown Manhattan. And if you're not familiar with it, this is a place where celebrities walk on the street all the time like it's nothing, and no one bothers them. I'm a New Yorker. I would never bother them. It's sort of a credo of New York. We're all too busy to have anybody's crap or make any sort of a note of anybody. We all keep to ourselves. It's a very safe city though. And this is an area of the city that is very high end. It's an area that is extremely secure. There's already a huge police presence in Midtown. And the area is under heavy surveillance with CCTV, frequent patrols. There's a lot of private security there. It's a very safe area. But as I said, I mean, if somebody's going to break into your house and kill you with a baseball bat, there are only that many ways you can prevent that, right? You can't never go outside. So I don't think it was that unreasonable. But it's likely going to make a lot of boards and CEOs rethink whether or not they want to do that. It's probably caused uh, a lot of fear in people. I'm not necessarily sure that it should change. I don't think that it really can. Um, because like I said, if anybody wants to kill you badly enough, they probably will. Now, it's also been brought up that there were protests and that he's received threats. But what does that really mean, threats these days? When you're the CEO of a company that people have strong opinions of because it denies them claims or something, we know people have bad blood with their insurance company from time to time. It's the nature of the beast. And so, just like people might say, I hate Windows, it's acting up on me. God damn you, Bill Gates, even though he's retired for some time. Or, I got suspended from Facebook. God damn you, Mark Zuckerberg. People kind of personify the entire company as that. So that's understandable that you get threats. But in the anonymous age of internet and extreme speech and all this anonymous hate speech online, what even is a threat that you should take seriously? It's very hard to tell, right? There's so much flaming, spamming, and trolling. The thing is, what we have found out is that from the UHC's internal security, there was never any specific credible threat against him that was like actionable or anything. So that's an important thing to know, is that even though this company has its share of detractors, Now, it's also been mentioned that they had a lot of security available at the event. That's more for the event itself. It's generally to prevent people from crashing the event or causing trouble or that kind of thing. So keep out people you don't want, and to also deal with the fact that you could have an investor drink too much there or something. So that it's not really for life critical events. And in most corporate settings, it comes off as a relatively abstract risk that something like this would happen. Obviously, it can, but it's something that is just it's not really something that you would think of a whole lot in a tangible way. Now, one thing though that companies do have is they would have a successor plan. Because it's obvious that an executive could die, they would have business continuity plans, and that seems to have already kicked in. The thing is, I don't know how good these are. I mean, they may not have been tested or anything, but it is typically there are administrative ways of dealing with this in a rapid way that isn't going to cause them a whole lot of loss. Of course, there's a lot of heartache for those who worked with him, of course, a lot of fear and a lot of shock. But but they would have a succession plan. The question is only whether or not they've kind of left it untested and haven't fleshed it out and made sure that it is well implemented. The elephant in the room here as a cybersecurity guy for me is that United Healthcare had one of the worst cybersecurity breaches, which cost them a couple $1 billion. It ended up costing society in the healthcare sector more than $30 billion in total global losses. A lot of people couldn't fill their prescriptions. Does this have anything to do with the shooting? Well, probably not directly. No. However, it should be noted that these massive data breaches cause a lot of pain and suffering and economic harm to the world. They drive up the cost of healthcare. They're inflationary. They make people trust companies that much less. And it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's just adding on to a lot more bad publicity. Oh, in addition to denying my claim, now I got to worry about my identity being stolen. Thanks, UHCC. It really makes people feel violated and threatened like that. The thing is, he was never the face of that. That was more pushed towards the CISO and the CEO of the group. So I doubt, although this kind of thing does increase the noise threshold of sort of bad signals and bad noise that you're getting, and cybersecurity problems are huge. That's probably not a component. It does, however, make me wonder whether or not their abysmal risk management and internal security may have played a role. One thing that should be a takeaway from this is that this is a demonstration of why there's a lot of non-sensitive stuff in a company that is for internal use only. Basically, the ability to get open source intelligence and everything by knowing who eats with who at the cafeteria and what time it closes and why this form is sent to that person. Even though this isn't sensitive in and of itself, the more this stuff that gets out, the more rich the picture of where people are going to be, and the more that people can use that for social engineering. And this was clearly well researched. So, I mean, what's it going to change or what has to change? Well, as I said, I'm not sure that there's any practical solution to, stopping people who are this well prepared and this willing. Although I don't think it was a hitman. This was obviously a very well-motivated person who just put in a lot of time and diligence. But I'm not sure there's a whole lot you could do about that. You can try to tighten security in general, but what this might make worse is the biggest problem we have, which is management disconnect. Really, the fact that executives are so insulated from the boots on the ground at their company with their clients and customers is a terrible thing. It means they have it means that they have a real management disconnect. It's a vertical blindness. Okay, it's a lack of situational awareness, and I would bet you anything that the executives of healthcare companies like UHC probably don't realize just how little goodwill there is for their companies and how badly they're perceived by most people. They're probably very insulated from this. And that sort of insulation, which happens with, you see it happen as well with dictators in oppressive regimes where no one wants to tell them, hey, we get nothing but bad press and no one likes us and they talk terrible about you. The fact that no one will bring that to their attention is a bad thing. We really need to move to a world where executives are more connected with the people they serve, because that's what their companies do. They are there to serve the public and their investors, not just their investors either. And, to me, this is really a symptom of that. It's a symptom of this frustration and feeling like companies are not on our side. I mean, that's a little bit of speculation. What we do know already is that we've seen the face of the killer, and it appears that this is a younger man. So probably an amateur who was staying at a hostel and made a number of mistakes. This also brings up another area that I'm very knowledgeable about, which is the sort of surveillance state that we live under. New York City does have quite a few CCTV cameras, which are operated by the authorities, but in a place like New York, there are blind spots in places like Central Park. There's also the fact that when you're moving through any sort of a private area, private property, there are many buildings in New York that are private property where you could just walk through. Okay, like places like the concourse of Rockefeller Center. Those would all be private security cameras, which wouldn't be operated by the city. And so they might be of different standards. The city would now have to reach out to the security of that facility, that building. For example, the hostel where he was apparently staying. We already are getting quite a bit of information here. Clearly, this guy was not aware of how well surveilled the city really is, and he showed his face a little too soon. But there's a cumbersomeness when these are not city-controlled cameras that they have to reach out to the private organization to get the images. And the other thing is you're going to notice that they're very inconsistent. And the reason for that is that a lot of places do not maintain the best security. So even though, modern cameras can do 4K, they're not expensive. Ultra high quality recording is available on every cheap cell phone these days. So no, it's no problem. But because risk management technology is often deprioritized, you're going to see a lot of older cameras with subpar images. You could have modern high definition, but many places are going to have 20-year-old cameras. In fact, there's still places that use VHS VCRs for their cameras. And that is something you frequently see in security, particularly at the non-corporate places, the lower-end places. But that's really what I had to say about this. I just wanted to mention that this is really a tragic event because regardless of how you feel about health insurance, this is absolutely not okay. This is not acceptable. This is a man who is just going about his job. By all accounts, a well-liked person. The question that has also been brought up is whether or not there were proceedings against the company, and there have been by the DOJ. Involving allegations of price fixing and anti-competitive activities. It's not clear how serious those are. It's not unusual for companies to be sued, and particularly large, highly regulated companies like this. And there's also ongoing investigations and accusations about the data breach. But the thing is, company executives are so disconnected from this sort of thing these days. These operations, especially since COVID. And that is, as I said, really a problem that we need to start talking about more. But that's sort of my rambling, impromptu take on this as a corporate security expert. This is unusual. It's not unheard of. It's not impossible. It's not possible really to have a zero risk that somebody who's willing to try hard enough can't get to you. It probably was not all that well appreciated by the company. The company is probably unaware of their of how they're actually viewed or the public sentiment towards them. And this appears to have been somebody who was just very highly motivated to make a statement and take out some revenge. It's unfortunate that a father of two was the target there. But in conclusion, what can we do to improve security for companies? Because I don't think being more closed off with more bodyguards is actually going to help that much. Really more situational awareness, more connection, and possibly just more paying attention to the risks around you. And, it's possible also we could maybe have a future where we have AI that monitors for unusual activities with people, but I don't think so. I think that there are risks to life, and really as long as guns are as available as they are, and as long as we want to be people who move around in public, these risks do exist. And so we have to keep them in perspective, and companies just need to be ready for this, and they need to mitigate them as much as possible by having good public sentiment and openness, and they have to have situational awareness and see these things for what they are. And of course, they have to have contingencies for when the worst happens because we are all mortal. So, went way over time there. That's 15 minutes, but that's my take as a corporate security expert who's been doing this for a very long time and is very familiar with corporate events in general, New York City. Yeah, there's a lot here I know very well, and it's a really tragic situation. The one thing I will say is that I'm very confident that the assailant will be caught at this point.